To the person who sent me this story, I know I left a comment underneath the thread on Twitter saying no comment, but I kept seeing it pop up. Now I have a comment to make. Many of you will not know who this guy is. As a matter of fact, none of you probably will know who this guy is because he's nobody famous, but he put himself out there in a way that if he does become known, it's not going to be for anything good, in my opinion. But this man's name is Wayne Jones. He is the son of one of the victims of the mass killing at the Tops grocery store back in March at the hands of Peyton Gendron. He basically has now come out and I guess this is his first time speaking on the incident itself publicly. And of course, right now they're trying to decide two things with Peyton Gendron. Should he get the death penalty or should he get life in prison? Like, those are the only two options that he has. This guy decides he wants to speak up and say in so many words that Peyton Gendron should not receive the death penalty because he believes that it'll make him a martyr. And not only that, he said when he looks at Peyton Gendron, he sees a child. Excuse me? Peyton Gendron is 19. He has not been a child for 2 years. If you want to consider, being 17 a child. I mean, let's put it this way. He has not been a minor for 2 years. He hasn't been a child per se even longer. So I don't know what this dude is talking about, but they always got to find one to come out and say some foolishness. And in this instance, he is that one. Let's see what they're talking about on ABC News. While federal prosecutors are weighing whether to seek the death penalty against the suspect in the racially motivated Buffalo, New York mass shooting let's just say mass murdering, that left 10 black people dead, the son of one of the victims told ABC News he does not want to see the alleged teenage gunman, and I don't know why they call him teenage, gunman made into a martyr. Wayne Jones, the only child of 65-year-old Celestine Chaney, one of the people slain in the May 14th mass murder, said he would rather see the white suspect, Peyton Gendron, age 19, spend the rest of his life behind bars. When you see him in court, he's a child. You can tell he's a child, and whether he tells anybody or not, you can see it in his face. I messed up badly. So now you're putting words into his mouth. Messed up badly? That can be used in other instances, not when you murder 10 people that you went and intentionally went to go murder. And let's really think about what this guy just said. Would that same mercy be extended to a black person, man or woman? Hell, to this guy, Wayne Jones, I'll ask you directly, even though you may never see this video, would that line of questioning that you just said, would that be extended to you if you were in Peyton Gendron's shoes? If you were even alive to have that line of questioning sent to you. I highly doubt that. Think about Tamir Rice. He was 12 years old when he was murdered back in 2014, and they immediately thought he was 18. They didn't come out and say he was just a child. They said, oh, he was 18. And it's crazy when you think about it, because if he was still alive, he would be 18 or maybe 19 today, when you put that into perspective. See, people don't think before they speak, and clearly he didn't think before he spoke. But they put a camera and a microphone in his face, and this is what he said. Your mother was one of 10 people who lost their lives viciously in a very inhumane way, and this is what you want to come out and say out of your mouth. This is reminding me of what happened down in Charleston a few years ago with the church with Dylan Roof. And you had them people wasn't even fresh off the scene and at the morgue before they started saying they forgive him. This is crazy. I'm just waiting for him to actually say he forgives him. Okay, it goes on to say he's 49, and it's about him. He's the father of 6 children. So for me, I would rather for him just to stay behind bars for the rest of his life. If you kill him, he becomes a martyr. Well, guess what? If they decide to make the decision to take his ass out, so be it. As Jones spoke out, a new federal joint intelligence bulletin obtained by ABC News warns that the public disclosure of Gendron's nearly 700-page online diary is likely to enhance the capability of copycat attackers. The National Counterterrorism Center document from the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security said the tactics, techniques, and procedures Gendron allegedly wrote about may contribute to the current threat landscape because it represents a how-to guide for future attackers. DHS, FBI, and NCTC, which stands for the National Counterterrorism Center, assess that dissemination of written guidance outlining the tactics, techniques, and procedures used by the alleged Buffalo attacker will likely enhance the capabilities of potential mass casualty shooters who may be inspired by this attack, the bulletin said. Gendron is accused of planning the massacre for months, including traveling to the store, a more than 3-hour drive from his home in Conklin, New York, to sketch the layout and count the number of black people present, federal prosecutors said. And I'm glad that they're sticking to this because this reminds me of the live stream I recently did where I was breaking down that thing with that Twitch streamer Gideon, when he was mentioning about how Twitch didn't really do anything when it came to Peyton Gendron and what he did, and he said people of color. Look, this wasn't a people of color thing. It was black people. So I'm glad that ABC News is not throwing in that people of color thing, because Peyton Gendron did not kill anybody else. He went and specifically killed black people. He went in there with a plan to attack and kill black people, and that's what he did. He did not kill any other group. Hell, let's not forget when we saw a little bit of his clipping of his video, when he was looking through the store to see what black people he could kill, he came across a white guy on the floor and he screamed, and Peyton Gendron not only did not shoot that guy, but he said, "Oh, my bad," or something to that effect, and then continued on with his massacre. Gendron was allegedly motivated by a racist far-right conspiracy known as replacement theory, and he wanted to inspire others to commit similar attacks, according to a federal criminal complaint. But Garnell Whitfield Jr., the former Buffalo Fire Commissioner, whose 86-year-old mother, Ruth Whitfield, was the oldest victim killed in the rampage, told ABC News a surge in attacks on the black community fueled by what he described as an increase of racist rhetoric from far-right wingers, and was occurring long before the Buffalo killing rampage. In 2015, white supremacist Dylan Roof murdered 9 black members of the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina during a Bible study. Roof, who was convicted on federal hate crime charges and sentenced to death, confessed he wanted to ignite a race war. In 2017, avowed white supremacist James Alex Fields Jr. deliberately drove his car into a crowd of anti-racism protesters at a rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, killing 1 woman and injuring dozens of other people. Fields, who pled guilty to 29 of 30 federal hate crimes, was sentenced to life in prison. He was also convicted on state murder charges. According to FBI statistics, the number of reported hate crimes against blacks in America in 2020 was 2,871. Up from 1,972 in 2019. Now, keep in mind, this is at a time when we was on lockdown and a quarantine. Now, you got to ask yourself one question. How in the hell that even in a year of a pandemic do the hate crimes against black people increase versus a year where there was no pandemic, there was no quarantine, there was no lockdown, when everybody's supposed to be at home, quote unquote? Like, really make sense of that, if you can. Whitfield said he'd rather spend time focused on the dynamics driving the rise in hate crimes than on the teenager accused. And I don't know why they keep calling him a teenager. Accused in the top store rampage. But listen, this ain't about that guy. This guy is an insignificant pawn being used by the powers that be, by the system that be, to do their dirty work. Okay? Whitfield said of Gendron, refusing to say his name. So I'm not going to focus on him. He is in custody. He added, he's certainly going to get whatever he gets. I don't care if he gets the death penalty or not. I don't really care about him. I'm not going to spend my time talking about him or focusing on him. The truth of the matter is that I'm focused on the things that empowered him and the reason he became who he was. The systems and the people that continue to be in power to this day, that continue to make victims of us all. Well, let me just ask this Whitfield guy, because this is a completely different person that's talking right now, not the one on the screen. What if he wasn't empowered by these outside entities? I'm just using that as an example. What if he wasn't empowered by these outside entities? What if this is just who he is? Same thing with Dylan Roof and the others. Let's take away what empowered them to do what they did. What if this is just who they are? A lot of people can't believe or wrap their mind around the fact that a lot of the people that do these things are just evil to the core. I just did a video about Ethan Miller, another evil ass Ethan, who basically he went and tried to do a copycat of what happened at the Tops grocery store in Buffalo. He even said in his manifesto that he's not a white supremacist. He's not attached to any of these groups. He just flat out said, I'm evil. So you can't always just say, these other things are emboldening these people. Not saying that they aren't, because a lot of them get brainwashed by this type of thing. But it's not always that. A lot of them just are evil. That's just who they are. If you don't believe it, look at how their behavior is when they're younger. They always say if you come across a person that's going around killing small animals in the most vicious and vile way, you better be wary of how they're going to be when they grow up. Even whether it's teenage age range or adulthood. Fragrance Harris Stanfield, a Tops worker who survived the shooting, also told ABC News that she is against putting anyone to death. Oh, they just rolling out the red carpet for these individuals. I mean, obviously, he should not be released. Whether he gets the death penalty or not, that is not one thing that I would think about. I'm not into death like that. I don't wish death on anyone for a reason. Well, he clearly wished death on you and executed, keyword executed, that plan. See, black people, we got to get out of this. We got to get out of this line of thinking. Here I am thinking I'm going to read an article just on one person, but I've now read this. I'm reading this and it's covered two more people that pretty much have the same line of thinking of, I don't care if he gets the death penalty or not. You actually should care whether or not he should get the death penalty. Because you don't want a lot of them to link up with a lot of these people inside that prison. If the option to have the death penalty is on the table, let it be where it's at. A person like that does not deserve to continue breathing another day. They didn't let your loved one breathe another day after what they did back in May. They go on to say, I don't wish death on anyone for any reason, said Harris Stanfield, a mother of 7 who says she is a devout Muslim. An educator in the Buffalo Public Schools who was working at Tops as a second job to make ends meet, Harris Stanfield says she was grateful the federal charges against the suspect have been updated to include victims like her who were not physically injured in the shooting but have been left traumatized by what they experienced. Harris Stanfield says she was thankful that federal prosecutors listened to her when she voiced her concern that initially no charges were filed on behalf of the victims who were not killed or injured. She said that when she saw the first charges filed against the suspect, she was grieved again. I felt like there was a totally different set of trauma, being that it was just for the people who were shot or people who were killed, Harris Stanfield said. Everyone else was not included. The 27 count federal indictment charges Gendron with 14 violations of the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, including 10 counts of hate crimes resulting in death, 3 counts of hate crimes involving an attempt to kill 3 injured individuals, and 1 hate crimes count alleging the suspect attempted to kill additional black people in and around the Tops grocery store. He is also charged with 13 firearm offenses. I'm still trying to figure out how in the world did they attach the Matthew Shepard, how did they combine the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. together to make a hate crime prevention act, because their murders were for 2 different things. If you remember Matthew Shepard, he was a white male in the academy. I believe he was still a teenager, if I'm not mistaken. It happened. It's crazy how long ago that was. Who was killed. And I'm saying allegedly because the story is very jumbled. The story that went out was because, of course, he was in the academy, but another story I heard was because the person who did it was scared that they were going to get outed for being on the down low and mixed up with Matthew Shepard. So I heard that as well. James Byrd Jr., this man was dragged for miles on the back of a pickup truck where his limbs literally became detached from his body by these damn hicks in Texas. So I'm trying to figure out how they combine them together. Like I said, they always got to find a way to attach black people to other people to try to make something happen. That's why you think they always trying to do a black and brown thing. Every time it's something happening to black people, they got to do a black and usually brown comes after the word and. Like Jones, Whitfield said he has attended several court hearings for Gendron and has concluded he is a victim too. How? Again, how are they going to sit up there and say that Peyton Gendron is a victim? How? I'm so confused right now. I really am. He's just too stupid and ignorant to know it. Actually, no, he's really not. He's really not. He knew exactly what he was doing. The only ones who sound stupid, and I hate to say this, the only ones who sound stupid and ignorant right now are the ones who are calling Peyton Gendron stupid and ignorant. His whole problem, if you read his manifesto, he was ostracized and picked on his whole life. Why are y'all trying to make this guy out to be a victim? He's not a victim. Your victims are laying in the ground right now. Your loved ones. Those are the victims. The one whose fate is decided whether he's going to live for the rest of his life behind bars or the one who's going to take the lethal cocktail is far from a victim. He said he was ostracized and picked on his whole life. He felt, Whitfield said, it wasn't about black people. No black people lived near him. It was mean-spirited people, but it wasn't black people. He had no reason to channel, but they helped him channel that anger to us. He's an afterthought. If I had my way, would I do something to him? Probably so, for hurting my mother. But the more important thing to me is the systems that we all have been living with, that we all have been suffering from. And that's where I want to focus my energy. Man, they are literally inches away from saying I forgive you. I'm just waiting for the shoe to drop. Whitfield said he would like to see a serious dialogue in America occur over the rise of white supremacy, but doubts that will happen because it's not convenient. You would have to acknowledge that your ancestors enslaved my ancestors and built this country on our backs. You would have to acknowledge all those things. You would have to acknowledge the lies that you've been taught, and you'd have to acknowledge the faults of your ancestors, of your belief system. You would have to come to grips with all of that, and that's uncomfortable, Whitfield said. If he just said that part, which he said right there, and eliminated all the babble that he said before that, I will be completely on board with him right now. But with that part saying that he's not a victim and all of that, that's a bunch of crap. It is. Meanwhile, Jones said he believes Gendron could be more help in combating future racially motivated attacks if he's kept alive. Now it's back on this guy. Are y'all listening to this right now? What I thought started off with, or would have just been focused on one person, and that's the one in the picture, has now transcended into a snowball effect into these other people. He said, just let him sit there and let him think. Like, I've got to keep thinking for the rest of my life. I've got to think about it. My mom is gone. So the rest of his life, he needs to think about, I can't hug my mother because I did this and I'm in here. So that's the outcome I would like, Jones told ABC News. I know some people want the death penalty for him. Probably if I were younger, that's probably how I would want to go. But I've got kids. I've had 18-year-old kids, and you make a lot of mistakes when you're younger. This was not a mistake. Him going out to murder 10 black people that he targeted, and not specifically because of who they are individually, but because they were black. It could have been anybody. But those were the 10 that unfortunately met their end at this gun-wielding psycho. That's not a mistake. He made a big one, but he doesn't come across to me as a hardcore terrorist. Are you fucking kidding me right now? What is this shit that I'm reading? This shit is blowing my mind right now. I tried to go through this whole video and not cuss, but goddamn, I have to. This is some weird shit. What? I know it's 2022, but goddamn, I feel like I'm about to walk into the spiral of the goddamn Twilight Zone. Is this the upside down from Stranger Things? He said ideally he would like to see a program in which others thinking of following in the suspect's footsteps be brought to prison to speak with him so he can tell them don't get caught in what I did. So now are you advertising that they bring back the goddamn Scared Straight program? Because that's exactly what it sounded like. Jones agrees with Whitfield that Gendron wasn't just a lone wolf. He just sits with his head down. He could be brainwashed. You're talking about a kid on the internet for years, Jones said. Somebody brainwashed him into this or taught him into doing it. Gave him the idea and kept feeding him that blacks are taking over in this and that. I'm so glad I am at the end of this fucking article. That was 20 minutes and 30 seconds of hell I will not get back. That's how long it took me to get through this article, of course adding in my side commentary in between. What the hell did I just read? Moreover, to those in the chat and in the comment section, what the hell did you just listen to? What did I subject you to for the last 20 minutes? Now I can see why I said no comment. And the thing is, when I wrote that on Twitter, that was before I read anything. I promise you that. All I looked at was the headline and I said no comment. Because it's almost like I knew it was about to come. But goddamn, this thing hit me like a freight train. I did not know I was going to get hit with all of that. But they know who to talk to. They knew who to send out there. All I was waiting for them to say was, I forgive him. I'm shocked, even with all the crap they said before this, that they did not say, I forgive him. They up in there making pleas, talking about he's a victim. Don't make him into a martyr. I've got kids. They make mistakes. He made a mistake. That wasn't a mistake. Anybody who goes months, weeks, days planning out a massacre, whether they are specifically targeting a particular group or it's just a random attack, that is not a mistake. That is planning. That is intentional. And then sat up there and said, I don't identify him as a hardcore terrorist, even though all the outlets have identified him as a domestic terrorist. I hope that what these individuals said in this article does not sway the decision of the courts. Now we know he only has two options: death or life imprisonment. But I hope that if they were leaning more towards death, that their minds don't get changed because of three chuckleheads. That shit is wild to me. And with that being said, I'm going to hop off of here and try to remain my sanity, keep my blood pressure down to, a good, a maintainable level, and try to expel or exercise out of my system what I just read, what I just had to consume. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Subscribe if you are new. Hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. If the bell for some reason does not work for you, I upload my videos in a Premiere format. That means you can click the notify button in the bottom left or bottom right corner of the thumbnail and you should be notified that way. All the links will be down in the description. I will talk to you in the next one.